welcome to St Mike's Youth Photo Club. The idea of this is that over the lockdown 3.0 we will try and do photos together. I'll give you some tutorials, give you some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years that I've been doing it, and maybe we'll have some special guests giving us help as well. Who knows where this is going to go. We're going to start it and just see what happens. So today's kind of photo tutorial tip is we're going to look at an introduction to photography, because we want this to be for anybody who wants to get into a little bit more photography, whoever takes photos, just to improve. So we're going to start right at the basics and then we're going to work our way up together. That's the kind of plan, and great to have you along with us. So I'm Sam, for those of you who may not know me. I am a youth worker at St Mike's. In my spare time I do wedding photography as a little kind of hobby on the side, and just love taking photos. So this is kind of me sharing a bit of what I've learned over the few years that I've been doing it. So we're going to start from the very basics. So most phones nowadays, and we're going to be mainly focusing on phones just to start off with, because pretty much everyone has one in their pocket. And actually if you can take a photo with this, then you can kind of take a photo with pretty much anything else. So really simply, photography works by focusing light onto a sensor, and then that sensor changes. So back in the day it was lenses that would focus it onto film, and that film has now been replaced by, in most cameras, you can still buy film cameras, replaced to an electronic sensor, which electronically senses the light that's been focused onto it. So even on tiny little sensors that are in your phone, the light is still being focused in on them. So one of the things that I want to teach you guys is about how to take a photo and frame it well. So we talked about actually how do you take a photo? Well, it's exposure, it's lenses, focusing light, and so looking at when you take a photo, composure, which is a posh word for like how much of the photo is kind of one thing and then another, how you compose your photo. In the same way that when an artist creates a painting, they'll do kind of the sky and the where kind of the trees are. They'll look for the most satisfying and kind of most important thing. A lot of photography is all about where does your eye get drawn. So for instance, on some of these photos, where is your eye drawn? Is it drawn to the thing that's in focus, or is it drawn to the thing that's like in the center of the frame? So there's a few ways that you can do it. You can have something off piece, but actually everything is drawing your eye to it. So using leading lines, which are the idea that when you shoot down a building, you can get the lines going straight and pointing at the subject that you want to take the photo of. For instance, like this. The leading lines point you to the subject. So there's a few things there. Subject. What is it that you're taking a photo of? What is it that you want the person looking at the photo for their eye to be drawn at? Those are the two things that when you take a photo are really important to remember. Is actually, what are you trying to draw this person to look at? Is it your dog being really cute? Is it the kind of beautiful grass and snow and frost, or the kind of water evaporating off of a fence in your back garden? What is it that you want to take a photo of and draw attention to? Knowing these two things helps you with your photography, because you know actually what is it that I'm trying to communicate, what am I trying to show. Making sure that actually when you're composing your shot, that it works for those two things. You know what is your subject, and you know what you're trying to draw the person to look at. So let's give us some examples and let's show it in the real world. One of the things that I like to do is come into my garden. So I'm currently in my garden. This is the neighbour's fence. One of the things I love to do is take photos in the garden. So if you've got an outdoor space, or when you're out on your walks, remembering those two things. of what is your subject. So for this demonstration, my subject is going to be my garden gnome, which is R2D2. And I want people to be drawn to the fact that I'm taking a photo of R2D2. So that's going to be my subject. Now, how do I compose my shot? There's lots of different areas in my garden that I can have as background. One of the things that I love to take photos of and to use is depth. So that's the idea that kind of, as I'm talking to you, currently I am closer to the shot and the camera that I'm shooting on than that wall and that fence. But I'm also closer than that house, which is further away. So within this shot here, there's depth between me and the camera, between me and R2D2, and between the houses. So actually when you're taking a photo, actually look at what is the depth within this shot. Am I taking one big plain shot, or am I focusing in on something closer? So one of the things to remember as well is that when you focus in on something closer, so it's coming in closer, have you noticed that the background has gone slightly more out of focus? That out of focus is called bokeh, or bokeh if you are Japanese, which is where it's originally from, so there's different ways to pronounce that word. But the idea is that when you come closer or focus in on something close, the background goes a bit more out of focus. You can also make the background more out of focus by using a larger aperture. So aperture is the idea so that when your lens, it goes through a little hole to focus it as well. Depending on how big and small you make that hole, depends on how much light. We'll go into it on another video because this aperture is really, really clever. And you can change it on some phones now as well. So, back to R2D2. So, I'm going to go and set up for my shot. So, looking at my composition and my depth, now that I've got my subject. So, I've come out to my back garden, and I've got my subject, R2D2, who's down here. And so, when I'm taking my photo, one of the things I want to work on is actually what's in the foreground. So what's really what's kind of in front of my subject. So what's kind of here. So for instance, in this shot here that you can see, my hand is currently in the foreground and it's a bit blurry. In the background, I've got these fences, this tree, R2D2, and over here, over there, is the shed. So actually, within the kind of foreground and the background, to compose this shot, I've looked at what is kind of in front, what's behind, and gone, actually, when I'm shooting this photo in this position, I want you to be focused on me, but I also want you to be able to see what's behind me, so that when I turn my back to take the photo that I'm about to take, you can understand the context of that. So, when taking a photo, make sure you wrap up warm because it's a bit chilly at the moment. The other thing is that most people take a photo like this. So here's my setup currently. There we go. Now you can see that too. Most people will take a photo like that. One of the things I love to do is actually turn it upside down. And this way you put a bit of grass or something in between, something in the foreground in front of your subject, so that actually our eyes are naturally drawn to the thing that's most in focus within a shot. So to make a good photo, you want to have it either all in focus or have your subject in focus. So for instance, if somebody's running past and you don't get their eye, which is where most people will look for something like a face to be in focus. So when we kind of do tutorials and stuff, we look for the eye as the focus. In this case, it will be R2D2 as a whole. So, photo upside down. I'll show you first what it looks like normally. So I like to get nice and low down so that I've got something in the foreground, something in the background, and looking at the composure, actually I want the people taking and looking at this photo, I want your eye to be drawn to R2D2 as the subject. Most phones have an ability to tap on the screen and that will pinpoint the focus. So it helps in this case. So for instance, if I was recording this, I would tap on my face as the bit that needs to be in focus. So open the camera up, tap on him, and then, so looking at the composure, I want to tilt it up a little bit because I want to have some sky as well. And that kind of takes into consideration some of them. My phone's a bit fancy and I can have a wide or a zoom, but I want this to be the photo. Then, so comparing that with how, if I turned it upside down, let's have a look. So we're looking upside down with a bit of grass in the foreground and a bit of the trees. Now I've had to go quite low so that I can get a bit of everything in. Now some of this will be personal preference. So actually, when you see the two photos that I've just taken, you might prefer one over the other. And that's the joy of photography. Actually, it can be down to personal interpretation. Personally, I like to have stuff in the foreground as well as in the background. So when I'm doing wedding photos and stuff, my favourite shot is to take a photo of somebody taking a photo, because you get over their shoulder, you get a bit in the foreground, you get the subject, which is them with their phone, and hopefully you get the actual phone in focus so you can see the photo that they've taken. And it tells a story of actually when that person then sees that photo, they can go, oh, I've got that photo, and there's a photo of me taking that photo. And it's a lovely little moment. So, remembering the two rules. What is your subject? Because if you don't know it, then the people looking at your photo won't know it either. And number two, what are you wanting to draw your eye, the person's eye to? Is it the person that's the subject, or is it something else? It might be that you've taken a photo and actually your subject might be a person, but actually what you want to draw their eye to is something that's happening behind. And one of those things that you can do in post is you can crop it so that it fits, and the thing that you want to be focusing on, or something that was maybe missed, you can then make the composure of the shot, so what the kind of person sees, focus on that subject rather than on the thing that potentially you may have been focusing on to start with. So a way I could do that is if I wanted to take a photo here of R2D2, but then suddenly a bird flies over here and I want to take a photo there, I could then crop that photo to the bird or the plane or something to make that the focus. And hopefully it'll be in focus, but if not, then hey ho. So I hope this has been helpful. This has been a little intro into photography, looking at composure, how cameras kind of made up, how to take a better photo with your phone, some upside down techniques, and some just little tips and tricks that I've learned along the way when taking photos with my phone. One of the things that I'd love to be able to see is some of your photos so that you've taken in lockdown. So make sure, if you've got social media, to tag us hashtag SMY Photo Club, all one word, and tag us at St Mike's Youth, and we'll try and have a look at all of them, because I'd love to see some of the photos that you've taken in lockdown after watching this tutorial. I'm kind of intrigued. Plus, there will be more coming over the next few weeks. Yeah, it's been lovely to have you, and maybe see you next time in Photo Club. See you soon. Bye.